We bring in former Greek Prime Minister George Papandreou, who led Greece from 2009 to 2011. That's when the debt crisis there exploded. Mr. Prime Minister, thank you for being with us.
It's my pleasure.
Okay, the New York Times is reporting that Alexis Tsipras has all but misread his country's taste for ditching the Eurozone. Do you believe the referendum set for Sunday will happen, and which side are you supporting?
I'm supporting the yes side, despite the fact that we're really not sure what we're voting on, because the text that is being offered to us as a text we should vote on was never signed and has been withdrawn from the European Union, from the Eurozone. Secondly, I, in the past, had called for a referendum, and luckily I didn't hold it. I think we should have had it. There was a lot of reaction, but it was a very different referendum. It was after an agreement with our partners. It was a big haircut and a new program and adjustment and reforms. Secondly, I was in favor of a yes, so as government, I was supporting this program, and I would have given at least a month for debate before the referendum. Now, all these are not happening now, and it's becoming a dangerous drama, which could lead to anything. I would say a very, very peculiar, if not dangerous, outcome.
Mr. Prime Minister, in the last half hour, the teleconference with the Eurozone finance ministers just ended. The word coming out of that was that the Greeks had made new budget cuts and proposals to overhaul. It sounds like they're suddenly realizing, oh my gosh, I mean, we don't like how this is starting to look. When you run out of petrol, you run out of cash, people are upset. I think that suddenly you may have a real sea change. Am I sensing that correctly?
It's possible. You know, in 2010, I decided to ask for the bailout in Greece. In fact, to avoid what we are seeing today. But nobody, or not nobody, but quite a few people doubted that this could happen. And you know, I thought that we had avoided it in 2010 forever, and we were on the path. We made the biggest budget cuts ever. If you want to compare with the United States, it would be like cutting the defense budget, the total defense budget, plus the education budget, plus more is what we have done in Greece. A huge budget cut. We were very close to accessing the markets, which was the purpose of this program. Now, this government wanted to renegotiate the terms. I don't dismiss that as they did campaign on that. But we were 5 months in negotiations, and no real negotiations took place until the last few weeks, where in fact, in the end, we didn't reach an agreement. I'm very sorry for that. Well, because I think.
And I understand that, but, you know, as a socialist, you know that, look, it may be a little flippant to say, but eventually you run out of other people's money, and Greece is seeing that right now, and you've got children yourself. You don't reward profligate behavior with more money or a car or candy or another bailout. And what is the answer for Greece now, Mr. Prime Minister?
As you mentioned, socialists, I ran on a program to change Greece, and I actually was saddled with a deficit from a conservative government, and I was the one that had to do. I was the one that had to make the cuts, which I did, and I was the one that had to take all the very difficult measures for the pensioners, the pension system, and the wages and the benefits to be able to make sure that my country is more viable. And make reforms, because I think the deficit was sort of the symptom of a deeper problem of governance in our country, of clientelism, graft, and bureaucracy. So I'm in favor of a well-run state, not a big state, but a well-run state that actually serves its people.
And I must ask you. I must ask you, as the time clicks down to this deadline, number one, we're not going to see a single euro of that payment back to the IMF, but will we see on Sunday a yes or no vote, or even a vote at all? What's your best guess, sir?
Well, you're right to question whether the practical elements of how we go to a referendum in only a few days without the necessary practical preparations is going to be a huge task. So we may see a very, 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 very disorganized situation, which would make things very, very peculiar. If we even had a last-minute agreement, I think we could have at least postponed the referendum. But that doesn't seem to be in the making right now. I would hope that as people are moving away from this emotional response, and I can understand it. After 5 years of austerity and 5 years of the Troika leading your economy, people are saying, well, maybe we should just send a message to Europe that, no, we don't want this. But on the other hand, we have to see why we had to take these measures, and that the choice of a no vote will make it much worse. We will become more dependent. We will have more cuts, more austerity. And I would think and the adjustment will be very abrupt and very painful, particularly for the poor and the middle class in Greece.
Indeed. And no one, I think, who has their head together on this wants to see a return to the drachma. Prime Minister Papandreou, it is so important to hear your voice on this. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.